I'm here in the exhibition, Don't Fence Us In, Crossing Boundaries in American Art. As the coordinator of education programs, when I was asked to work on a small area of this exhibition called Drawing the Boundaries of a Nation, which puts into context visually the founding documents of the American government, I was really thrilled because these are an educationally rich resource for us at the museum, for visiting students, for visitors. We're very lucky to have these documents on loan from the Chapin Rare Book Library here at the college. And some of the documents include the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the British reply from King George III. A lot of people don't realize he actually wrote back in response to the Declaration, the Articles of Confederation, the Bill of Rights, and others. So in this exhibition, we were interested not only in exploring geographical boundaries in American art and aesthetic boundaries, but social and political ones as well. And as I started to cull artwork from our collection that could visually express and explore some of the ideas put forth in the founding documents, I thought there was really no better example of this than this trio of portraits that we have on the back wall. The top portrait is by Benjamin West, an American-born painter, but by the time of this portrait of Selina Elizabeth Brooks, a member of the Irish peerage, he was already living in England and working as a portrait painter for King George III. The top portrait really illustrates the European style at the time, which many Americans of wealth were emulating. We see the opulence of the fabric, the feathers in her hair, really the grand manner portrait style, where someone can really put forth and convey an idealized version of themselves, showing their worldly goods. The two bottom portraits are also by American artists and present a very different style, which really came about around the time of the Revolution. So this portrait here is by John Singleton Copley of Reverend Samuel Cooper of the Brattle Square Church in Boston. The other side, we have a portrait by a self-taught painter, an itinerant painter, William Jennings, and his portrait of Colonel Benjamin Simons, who actually served at Fort Massachusetts with Ephraim Williams, served in the French and Indian Wars, and went on to serve in the Revolutionary War. He is wearing his Revolutionary hat, even though this portrait was painted about 13 years after his service in the military, perhaps as a display of his pride at having served his country. In contrast to the Benjamin West portrait on top, these both display a much more somber color palette, a simplicity of furniture, background, and garment. Even though these men are presenting themselves with pride in well-made garments, at this time there is a desire for political leaders in favor of the revolution to present a more sort of homespun image of the common man, of the patriot, the public servant who puts the public good above his own private luxury and enjoyment. This was a way for political leaders to distance themselves in the colonies from British and European styles, fashions, and imports. So just as subjects of portraits at the time of the Revolution were interested in portraying themselves in a certain light in relationship to the political divisions that were going on at the time, 100 years later, at the time of the first centennial, Americans were also thinking back to the time of the Revolution and looking for symbols that could be used to establish an American identity. This is a small version of a monumental scale sculpture that was created by the artist Daniel Chester French when he was very early in his career, only 25 years old. It depicts the Minuteman, one of the farmers who, at the time of the Revolution, laid down their plows and their farm tools in the field and took up arms to fight against the invading British soldiers. This was a commission by a group of local people in Concord, Massachusetts in 1875 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the battle. Among the committee members were Ralph Waldo Emerson, who had written a famous poem himself about the battle. The style of this sculpture is a great example of a romantic view of a sort of mythic figure of the American past. And at the time this sculpture was made, many Americans were looking for symbols that could unite the country, which was just coming out of the Civil War and the Reconstruction period, and beginning to move toward a country that had a role on the international stage. So people were looking for images that could erase divisions between people, between the states, between the North and the South, and create a greater feeling of unity. So this romantic spirit is shown in the bold stance, the forward march of this dedicated farmer who has taken up his rifle to serve his country. The composition of the sculpture was inspired by the Apollo Belvedere, an ancient Greek sculpture, which is famous for its use of contrapposto, where the figure's weight is on one leg and the weight is off of the other leg. This kind of composition allows you to show a figure going from stasis, from being still or in a state of inertia, to taking a position of movement and action. The final monumental bronze sculpture, which is in Concord today, is 7 feet tall and was cast in metal from confiscated Civil War cannons.